Welcome everyone virtually to the Norfolk Library and to our program this afternoon. Although we do wish that we could be in person, surrounded by John's beautiful weather vanes, which have been on display here for the month of January, we are so excited to have him here today. He's at the library, as you can see from his background, and he has agreed to do a Zoom recording for us. For those of you who don't know, John was trained as an engineer, but he often worked with his father, Robert Garret Thew, a metal artist. And when his father passed away, John took over and expanded his business. John and his wife, Eve, moved to Norfolk with their children more than 50 years ago from Westport, Connecticut. As Eve once said in an interview, they thought they were going to live a quiet life. But instead, they settled into a happy chaos, with Eve opening the Eve Thew Gallery to showcase her wonderful handmade items, as well as items from artists and craftspeople in the Northwest corner, and with John in his workshop crafting 11,500, more or less, probably more, copper weather vanes, marketed and sold nationwide. We hope you will have a chance to come to the library if you haven't seen them. They will be on display through Wednesday. But if you can't, we do have them. We obviously are going to be showing slides of them in this recording. So thank you so much, John. And I am going to share my screen now so that we can get started on John's PowerPoint.
Well, I'd like to add on that 11,000 that they aren't, one of those is not in this show. These are all mostly one of a kind. You can see the wood carvings up on the background that were part of that 11,000 I've made. And I'll show you how presently. This clipper ship actually did make two of those.
John, let's go back to your workshop for a minute. I forwarded that too quickly, I'm afraid. But I know you had a few words to say about the picture of you in your workshop.
Well, oh yes. When I first saw that picture, I decided to start losing weight, so I don't look like that at all anymore. I'm very slender now, in my mind. Let's go on to the clipper ship, Anne.
Okay.
This, I got drawings, and not blueprints really, but drawings of this ship that was in the South Street Seaport in New York City, over on the East River. It's been moved within about a year ago back to Hamburg, Germany, where it was first built. It was built in 1903. It served as a cargo ship. It's made of steel. It sailed around the Horn time and again to bring fertilizer from Chile, from the mountains of Chile, and at other times it carried wheat. I'm not sure where they got the wheat. But there are 30 sails on this ship. And it was fun to make. That's all I can say. What's next, Anne? Well, this is an interesting, that pig on the lower left, they're not quite the same. You can see where the shaft goes up near the front leg on the one on the lower left. That was pig number 1. I had trouble making it. Everything went wrong. It was supposed to go to the Chicago gift show, and it was in the winter of, it was around 1975, I think. Everything went wrong. I couldn't get it done in time to ship by UPS. In fact, I couldn't get it done until the day before the show. I finally finished it at almost midnight. I got 2 hours of sleep, put a address on a tag on its ear, took it to Bradley Airport, and it went unwrapped just like that. And I'm not sure where they put it in the plane, but I was told that it went by taxi cab from the airport to the Cow Palace, which is the location for the Chicago gift show. And Neiman Marcus buyer was there. On the right is the Neiman Marcus catalog, picture of it. and a much shinier pig there. They featured in that catalog, that full page, and they ordered 30 of them from us over the next few months, but never ran it again. I guess they ran out their good luck. But it was a nice, I was always kind of proud of the fact that they got there to the gift show in time. Pretty good. Next slide, Ann. Now here's a hound dog. Actually, I've made 2 of these. This was made for a couple in Florida. I can't remember the town. They had 2 of my hunter jumpers, one with a female rider and one with a male, and they said they needed a fox to go with it. It was in their kitchen of all places, so it must be a big kitchen. I sold them one of my foxes, and a few months later they said, well, this is nice, but we need a hound dog too. So I didn't have a hound dog, but I made temporary molds. And you can, just for anybody wanting to do things like this, the temporary mold can be made out of hydrostone. You can buy hydrostone right in next town north in Massachusetts. Where's that, Annie? Sheffield. Sheffield pottery has hydrostone. Hydrostone is made of a mixture of plaster of Paris and Portland cement. I don't know what the proportion there are, but they mix it and sell it that way. And it's so strong you can hammer on it without breaking it. The edges, little tiny edge, fragile parts might break, but you can. This was hammered out of a hydrostone mold. I don't think the teeth show. I added some teeth to the front. You can see it on this one up here on the, well, I can't show you, in the mouth on the one on the upper right. My wife didn't like yeah, there it is. She thought that made it look too fierce, but I kept them in there. Now, next slide, and there. This, we in selecting things to show, we were thinking, a friend of mine that helped me set this up, also named John, we were thinking that was one of my early silhouette Weathervanes. Well, I didn't start with silhouette because that's what my father made, but this, I can tell for the style, this stylized configuration, that was my father's design. And since it showed it hasn't been invisible for quite a while, it's been hiding somewhere in my shop, but my daughter saw it and she said, Dad, I want that. Don't sell that. So I won't. Anybody thinking they could buy it, no dice. This, well, it got me started on selling silhouette Weathervanes, got me into Weathervanes. Well, actually, my father designed them when I first started it, but I made them. That was cut out on a bandsaw and riveted onto an arrow. It's made of aluminum, and that's about all I can say about that one, I think. Next, and this is the one on the right is Goose number 5. The one on the left is the wooden pattern, I'll call it. I made a temporary pattern for that goose out of not hydrostone this time. It's before I heard of hydrostone. I made it out of epoxy with iron filings in it. It worked. You could hammer. It was hammered. The one on the right was hammered by hand. In fact, I hammered out 185 of them. And I know that's the right figure because all 185 came back over the next few months and years because I didn't put a hold down device, and with wings it flew away. One customer telephoned me and said it almost hit their mailman, but it missed, unfortunately. No suit. But I fixed them all. It felt guilty about it, so I didn't charge any for fixing them. But it had to fit them in because geese were taking off, literally. geese Weathervanes were. And I mean, sales were taking off. I was so busy, I had to turn down orders. The first year I made them, I turned down 70 orders, just couldn't make that many. You can see I don't know, I think I'm in the way of the goose on the right, but the mouth is open on that one. But when I made permanent metal molds, I changed the model, the wooden carving a little bit, and had a closed mouth. Didn't want the rain to get in there. So next, Anne. This is a Piper Cub. I had a very reputable sales company that sold top-notch artistic stuff. And when I suggested to the owners of it that I could make a Piper Cub, they said, "Oh, no, we want artistic stuff." So another day, several days later, I was happened to be on the phone with one of their employees, and the employee said, "Well, John, what's new?" And I said, "Well, I've got a Piper Cub, but your boss doesn't want it." He said, "He's not here today, so send one down." Well, the Piper Cubs I made were all had wheels, tail draggers, tail wheel and main wheels. This particular one I made for a cousin of Eve's, and it stayed right in his apartment for years. And he died of COVID just in early 2020, and the estate sent it on to me. So it's mine now, I guess. I inherited it. But the pontoons are accurate. They're made, I had made, the first one I made, a customer wanted a float plane like this, and he sent me blueprints of the float so I could make them accurately. And the owners of the sales rep were happy that it actually sold about 450 altogether, the ones with wheels. So it was, even though it wasn't what they thought was artistic, it had a certain appeal. So next, Anne. Oh, this is another special order for, and again, I've made, excuse me, I need a drink of water. The customer still there. One of the Owl and the Pussycat, and he said that one was his wife and the other one was the customer. I'm not sure which was which. Again, I used the hydrostone to make these two figures. The dory is, I had metal molds because that was one of my production Weathervanes. And so there was, in the letters, what I think they showed in the previous shot that the letters were cast aluminum. These letters are sawed out of brass. No, it's another shot. No, one more back. And there. The north, south, east, west there are all cast aluminum. They were cast in a foundry in Nashua, New Hampshire. But I changed to brass, saw it out, and there they are. And notice the pointy part of the end points down. So often people doing lettering don't seem to realize that. Those are Roman letters, and that pointy end on the right is down. I'm always catching that when I see them. Next picture here. Oh, I did mention this peaking. I'm trying to, for some reason at my age, names seem to drop out of my head. I'm trying to, there's a man that was world famous for sailing school ships around the world. And he was from New Hampshire, but he just wanted to go to sea. And eventually he did sign on, and he was on this ship, the Peking. And he would climb up the mast on the regular ladder and come down the edge of the sail, gripping the edge of the sail. And imagine doing that, but he must have had awful strong hands. And as I said before, that's a steel ship, and it was built in Hamburg, Germany. And it's back there at the Hamburg Museum. So next, again, another special order. The one on the left of this, these turn, and if you give it a little push, they'll go round and round. On the one on the left is I made for George Leclerc, owner of George's Garage. When he bought the building, his petroleum supplier had owned it. And at a certain point, George bought it and added, it was a flat roof, but George added a peaked roof to it. And when I saw the peaked roof, I said, oops, needs a weather vane. So I went over the drawing of that, well, it's a SUV, I guess, with a mother and two children. And I took over a drawing to show George, and I said, how about that? And George took one look and said, do it, which I did. No ask for the price or anything, just do it. And as you can see, that looks probably, well, I stylized it on Michaela and George looking under the hood. The one on the right, when a year or so later, George wanted another weather vane to go over the gas pumps. So that was an antique record. Again, you can't quite see it from here, but the hat is George's hat again, driving the record. And in the front, just to make it balance out for three, I made a Model A Roadster Ford with a couple of gals waving, and probably saw their boyfriends or something. So next picture. Now here's a series of watercolors that I made to show how they're carved. That figure holding the carving cool. I'm not sure what to call it. It's a little metal motor-driven carving device. It's a gouge on the end, and it can't cut your hand. You can put it right against your hand, start the motor, and it makes a buzz, but it won't cut. And the reason it won't is because it takes a very short stroke and very fast. So it makes quite a high-pitched buzzing noise. But it'll cut wood because wood resists it, but your hand flexes that much and won't cut it. Next, there's a series of several here, I think about 10. There. This is making the plaster mold. I made the horse in halves. So there's the left half. Mix the regular plaster and pour it on there in a wooden box. And next picture. There, the plaster mold goes into what's called a flask in foundry talk. It's a wooden box open on top and bottom. And there I am shoveling, or some figure, some man is shoveling sand, foundry sand on top of it. Foundry sand is so fine that it almost shows fingerprints. But it binds together tightly because it has a certain amount of clay, about, I think maybe 8% clay, moist clay, and that makes it all bind together. You can pack it tight, and next picture will show taking the mold, the plaster. Now that's the plaster mold being taken out of it, leaving a cavity where I pour molten metal in. I think the next picture shows that. Yeah, there it is. The metal I'm pouring in is called Kirksite. It's a patented alloy, patented by the National Lead Company back around 1900. So the patents are only good for 18 years, so it's public domain now. And you can buy it. Originally I bought a couple of tons of it from a weathervane maker who was going out of business down in Brooklyn, right under the Manhattan Bridge side, Brooklyn side of the Manhattan Bridge. And he had about 12 of those. Well, I'll show you the machines in a minute. And I bought one of those too. In the background is the homemade furnace for melting the metal. It's an old oil burner, that beige color. And it's made out of a piece of 10-inch pipe. Actually, just as a matter of interest, that 10-inch pipe was used at Hotchkiss School from the compressor that made the coolant, pumped it down to circulate underneath the ice to freeze freeze the water into ice in their hockey building, I guess. Anyway, they cut that pipe lengthwise, so welded ends on the piece of open pipe, and made a metal melting device. Next slide. Yeah, there's now, when you tip it over, after it solidifies, this zinc casting, Kirkshite, I should say, you tip it over and it dumps out from all the sand's loose there. I have to shovel it back into the barrel where I keep it. And the next picture should show well, there's the drop hammer. This drop hammer, with the help of a friend, maybe some of you know him, Perry Hunter. Perry and I took 5 trips to Brooklyn with his oversized pickup truck with oversized tires and carried tons of stuff up. That at the bottom of that brownish color is oak timber. Right on top of that is a 3,000 block of cast iron. And right on top of that is the mold with a wooden frame put around it, where I seal it tight so it won't leak, and pour molten lead into it. And that lead makes the punch that punches the copper into the mold underneath it. And it's a 1900 principle, but the machine was built in the 1800s, and it was pretty decrepit when I bought it, and it's even worse now. Next, and there's a slight exaggeration. It's much taller than I am. I think the machine is about 10 feet tall. I've drawn it so it looks like about 12. And there, I've just taken a piece of, well, it's half a whale. I just stamped it. When another friend, Harry Rallo, a painter, snapped a picture and used several pictures actually, and used those to do an oil painting of it, which he intended to trade to me for a Weathervane, but I never consummated the trade because his painting was so big it wouldn't fit in my house. So we're still laughing. I'm laughing it off. I'm not sure about Harry. So is there another picture, Ann? Oh yes, there's that's the copper part. That's the horse that we were doing in the mold, and that's a plastic hammer that I'm hammering the wrinkles out because it never makes a perfect stamping. It wrinkles the copper considerably, so I hammer those out so they're negligible. And next picture, I'm sewing it up, I think. Yeah, there's the bandsaw on the left, sawing the rest of the flat piece of copper away from the horse. And the picture on the right is where I'm soldering the inside leg. I have to make separate molds for the inside parts of the legs, soldering them on. And I think that's the last shot, isn't it? It's number 10. Yes, it is. Now this was a brochure that I used to sell to prospective customers and stores and so forth. The shot in the middle shows what I call the roof stand, and there's a right angle one that you can put on the side of the house, and a little wooden block that you get for an indoor mounting, and one with nothing else on it for cupola mounts, and the one with a black bottom fits over the rooftop. Those were choices that went with the Weathervane. You see deer, goose, and dory. And is there another side of that? Yeah, there's the Piper Cub with wheels, and the dory, and the center picture showing the dory shows the view from the top. The counterweight is cast of lead, and it's a fish. Someone called it a trout, I think, but it's actually, I meant it to be a codfish. Because those schooners used to sail out to the Grand Banks and launch these dories and individual fishermen, like in Captain's Courageous, would go out and reel in the fish. The fox on the lower left is modeled from a live fox. I took our two kids, about 8 and 10 years old, I think at the time, down to the Bronx Zoo to see a fox. And the fox never showed up. He wouldn't come out of his lair. We saw elephants and tigers and all kinds of things. And about 3 days later, Eve and I were driving to friends in Norfolk, up near Benedict Pond. And who should run out in front of us from the right and cross the road but a fox, a red fox. And so I slowed way down to get a look at him, and he turned around, ran back across the road the other way, showed me his other side. Then he came out again and ran down the road in front of me to show his hind end. Never got a front end look at him, but that was enough. From that, I didn't make a wooden carving. I made a clay, moist clay, made a wooden framework, wooden armature, you'd call it, and mounted the clay over it. The clay made plaster molds, but to get the clay out of the mold, it had to destroy the original. So there's no wooden model to keep for that. Are there any other shots, Ann?
Yeah.
Just well, that looks like the end of my demonstration. But I think Ann will ask if there's any questions. You want to take over, Ann?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And Kelly, I don't know if you been keeping an eye on questions, but Eric Anderson has a question. We thought actually, if it's possible for you to unmute, and if you would like to unmute, John might really like to hear the questions coming actually from the people who are questioning. So Eric, if it's possible for you to unmute. If not, I will ask John your question, which is, John, which are your 3 most popular weather vanes, and which was the most complicated for you to make?
Boy, double question. Well, to begin with, at the beginning, I should say, the most popular was the Canada Goose. I just couldn't keep up with them. People ordered and ordered and ordered, but gradually over the years, this was starting 50 years ago, 1972. The orders finally diminished down to, it might be 3 or 4 a year. And what the second most popular was the mallard pear. Eric, as you know, Eric knows, he's got not only a mallard pear, but he's got one special I made for him with 4 mallards on it. And there's another mallard pear right on Route 44, 2 of them. One at just before you get to George's garage on the right. You have to flash it between the trees as you drive by. But before you're leaving from town toward George's garage, before that is the old Laurel School. There's one there that's visible easily from the road. That's 2. And the third, I think, would be the fox. And I sold around, I think, made around 1,200 of the fox. There's the 3 about the most complicated. Well, that would be the hunter jumper with either rider. Both it was 43 parts altogether for that. But it was fun to make. They're all fun. In fact, if you look at it that way, if you work is something you don't like to do and fun is things you like to do, I never worked. I've enjoyed this for years and years.
That's the way it should be. That actually is an opening to Leah's question, which is, how long does it take you, or did it take you, to make something like the Piper Club airplane?
I don't know. Not counting making the molds and stuff in the beginning, I think I could possibly make 2 in a day, but that's probably exaggeration. And the reason I'm saying that is because a company, I don't think they're in business anymore, called the Nature Company, back 30 years ago or so, ordered 150 Weathervanes all at once, and half of them were goose and half were pigs. And I thought, oh, I can make 10 a week of those, that's all right. So I projected for 10 a week, and my gosh, I worked like mad. Eve gave up anything else she was doing. She was out in the shop soldering parts together, and I was banging out parts on my drop hammer, and we couldn't do it in 10 weeks. Well, it'd be 10, but 100 be 15 weeks, wouldn't it? I remember filling our whole front porch with packages that we packed for probably over a weekend. And the UPS arrived and they looked at it and they went, uh-oh, and he went left and they sent a bigger truck. But as I say, the most complicated was, we're on another question. How long did it take? Well, let's better make it a day, because I overestimate what I can do in a day.
Including, well, if you included carving the wooden model.
Well, that's good into a week or two now.
Yeah, exactly. That would take longer. And did you sign all of your Weathervanes or stamp them all?
Yes, at the very beginning, I had a stamp made, steel stamp, and I still have it. It says John Garret Thew, Norfolk, Connecticut. And I've stamped each one, and it comes right on the curved part of a figure, but I stamp the flat copper first, then shape it, and then I have a little vibrating tool that I can write my name in underneath that and the date. So each one is actually signed and dated.
And the number of the.
Oh, numbered, as my daughter reminds me. That's how I was able to make the count. Each one is numbered, so there they are.
So have you ever seen a Weathervane pop up for sale in the area? I don't know if you would keep your eye on that or not, but.
Well, Eric Anderson has bought at least one that I know of, and maybe more on the internet. They do show up once in a while.
Yeah.
I haven't hunted for them myself.
We have one question from Linda and Michael Krosner regarding the owl and the pussycat Weathervane. I actually love this question. Would the boat fill up with either water or snow, or did you provide drainage?
Yeah, well, it could fill up with snow, but it does. Each dory and the dory with the fisherman with the oars has 2 holes punched in the bottom. So if it's snow, when it melts, it'll run out those holes. At the lowest point, mind you.
Do you have any favorite? What is your favorite Weathervane that you've made?
I think the fox is my favorite. Well, maybe, and the goose is pretty close because I still run outdoors and look up in the sky when I hear honkings.
Well, we have one question from Andrew. You've mentioned the various materials you've used to make your forms and molds, but could you describe how you form the copper? Are you hammering sheets or pouring molten copper?
No, they're sheets of copper, and it's the same thickness as you can buy in the hardware store for flashing or for roofing. It's 20 thousandths of an inch. I think it's called 16 gauge. It's 16 ounces for a square foot. I've tried thinner and thicker, but that seemed to work out the best.
Here's a question from Carol Miller. Is it true you sold one to actor John Wayne?
Yes. No. I sold it to Mrs. Wayne.
Oh,
it was a Christmas present. He had a motorboat called the Wild Goose, and the order came through my sales reps, but it was addressed to Mrs. John Wayne in Hollywood. And my daughter, who's sitting next to me now, she was about 10 years old then, I think. And she said, "Oh, Dad, John Wayne, wow, let me put a note on it." So I said, "Okay." So she put a note on. I said, "Well, what'd you say?" And she said, "Oh, I'm not going to show you." And she wouldn't. I never saw it, what she did tell me, and what she said she wrote in it was, "Dear Mr. Wayne, my father made this weathering for you, and I've seen every movie you ever made." And in return, he sent her back a picture of himself with a True Grit picture with a patch over his one eye and saying, "Have a good life, Anne." So that was
That was 1976.
1976,
Yeah.
and he says. And she took it to one of those places that evaluates, like Antique Roadshow, evaluates, gives a value on it. And they said they thought it was worth $500. You want to sell it? And she said, "No way." So she still has it.
That's wonderful.
Glad you could.
Kate Desai is wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about your father's work. Now, did he have a studio in Westport?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was. Originally, it was well, they bought a house in Westport in 1924, had an outhouse and for boiling water, it had a hand pump in the kitchen. And for heat, it had a wood or kerosene, maybe, stove in the living room and a kerosene stove in the kitchen. And no wiring. So he had an uncle that was an electrician who wired it, and a friend of his was a plumber and plumbed it, and on and on. Just they had to pull his house together. My mother's father had 7 children, and he built a house for each kid. He was a carpenter. He he took the train from California in the early 20s and made a back porch and put together the bathroom and I'm not sure what else, but upgraded it into a livable house. But the studio had been a chicken coop about 60 feet away from the house, across the yard. That was upgraded with a fireplace and a wood stove, a little potbelly stove, where my father had lathes and saws and so forth, and clay working material. And that's where I'd go right after school when I was a kid and interrupt his work, and he'd stop and explain things to me, and never said, "Go away, I'm busy." Never did. At least I don't remember him ever saying it. So does that answer that question? Yes.
Yes, it does. Did you have your own studio in Westport? Was it?
Well, after 1937, when I was 10 years old, my father, there was a barn on the property, and he converted that to a bigger studio. He started the business right in the depths of the Depression, making home estate signs. And they were mostly cast out of aluminum. They'd put the patterns together and take the temporary patterns out of wood, take them to the foundry, have them cast, and bring the pattern board back and take all the letters off and set up another one, 10 or 12 at a time each day. That business went on until the World War II was in the offing, and the foundry started making aluminum engine parts and cut my father out. So he had to make another idea. He made wooden cultivators because people started victory gardens. The only metal you could buy was for farm equipment. So he bought mowing machine blades and mounted them on this wooden cultivator, and they would cut off the weeds right underground as you walked along pushing it. So that wasn't exactly a studio, it was a factory by then.
Sounds like it. And here's an interesting question. I think we spoke about this the other day, in that you worked a lot with molten lead. And did you take safety precautions? And were you able to work in the winter with these materials? Was you hampered in any way by the weather, the Norfolk winters?
Well, my barn had a sort of heat, but didn't really work. Portable power heaters. That's where the drop hammer is still, actually. I melted lead there to make finish out the mold. and lean over it and try not to breathe the fumes and scrape the slosh, whatever do you call it, dross, I guess, off the top, lead oxide, and knock it aside. So I'm sure I breathed a lot of lead fumes, but I didn't panic over it. I thought, I don't feel anything bad. My brain probably isn't what it could be.
I doubt that. John, Ian is wondering, other than your father, who are some of the artists and artisans who have inspired you over the years?
I think, well, right here next door in Canaan was Henry Taylor. I know you know Hatsie because she did a lot of work here in the library.
Yes.
Henry is just a great guy. And actually he had the same sales representatives that I did. But when I first came, I'd heard about, I guess, no, Henry heard about me and he came over to visit, and I was off somewhere. So next day I went over to his shop and I knocked on the door and he said, if I can use his language, I knocked on the door and he said, who is it? And I said, it's John Thew. And he says, I suppose you're one of those neat bastards. And I said, no, I'm a slob. And he said, okay, come on in. But Henry had sawdust, must have been knee deep, to put it gently, maybe a little more deeper than that. With paths, he had to walk through the path between the sawdust because he hadn't swept. He'd only just swept where he could walk between this machinery. But he was easygoing and happy, and just I learned a lot from him. Just how to live life, I think, rather than the artistic part.
That's wonderful. I'll be sure to pass this on to Bridget, his daughter, who is in the library all the time in our basement, working on our book sale.
Yeah, Bridget and I know each other.
Yes, Bridget's wonderful. So I don't see too many other questions. We were hoping this would be a meeting so that people could easily unmute themselves and show their faces to John. But since we had so many participants, we had to change it to a webinar. But I would like to invite anyone. I actually have a button that says allow to talk. So if anybody would like to greet John in person, maybe you could raise your hand. Kelly, I don't know if that's the right tech, but there's a little yellow hand at the bottom. And
yep, I see someone. Oh, yep, people are raising their hands.
Oh,
I will.
Awesome. So we will allow you to say hi to John. We've got just a number of people. Let's see. I'll go in alphabetical order. So let's start with Steve Edmondson.
Oh, Steve, I haven't seen you in a long while.
No, you haven't. I haven't seen you either, but lovely today.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to know a little bit more about the skills that your dad taught you. In particular, I've always been intrigued by your drop hammer. Did he have a drop hammer that you could operate, or is that a skill you had to learn on your own?
Kenneth Lynch, who had a sales shop in Wilton, Connecticut, and he used to make sundials, and he asked me to, because I had a patent on a sundial, he asked me to help him on his sundials. And so we got to know each other that way. And he was a half a generation older than I. He telephoned me one day after I'd moved to Norfolk and said, how would you like to buy a drop hammer? And I said, what's that? And he told me just what I've described, how he cast the mold and put it in and pour the lead and all that over the telephone. That's how I learned that and doing. So
that's wonderful. Ted Briggs tuning in maybe from the Carolinas.
Yes, yeah, Hilton Head. Yeah. You there, Ted?
It might be Sally. I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, we're both here.
Oh, wonderful.
No.
We're really enjoying it.
Yeah. John, do you remember you did a profile of John O'Malley some years ago? Was it in wood? I can't remember. It was so, the profile was so perfect. How did you accomplish that? And perhaps you can describe it a bit better, because
Okay, I need a little clarification. I can't think what it was I made.
you made a tiny, it couldn't have been any bigger than a card from a deck of cards.
Oh,
And it had a profile of
it
John.
was a silhouette.
A silhouette.
A silhouette,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, well, I did that. I made one of Alan Merman.
Oh,
I made two, one teaching and one doctoring.
how did you do it? What was it?
I made a drawing
Yeah.
and then pasted that with rubber cement onto a sheet of
We all
aluminum
set?
and then
Okay.
sawed out around the edge, and there it was. Peeled the paper off and sprayed it black.
Very easy.
Makes it sound so easy. Yeah. It was wonderful.
How about Bob Buncrott? We haven't seen you in a while.
Well, let me just say to Ted, I'll see you next Wednesday, Ted.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
We're on a Zoom friendship thing.
Oh, awesome. Wonderful.
Hi, John. Can you hear me?
This is Bob Buncrott.
Oh, hi, Bob. Haven't seen you. in
How
quite
are
a
you,
while.
John?
I'm
You
doing
look
well.
great. So
Oh,
a
good to see
wonderful
you.
show. Francesca's here too. She says hello to you also.
Hi, Francesca.
Hey, John.
I always enjoyed, I think one of the best profiles I ever wrote for Norfolk Now was with you, spending time with you in your house and with dear old Eve. It was just a wonderful time being with you up there.
Well,
Now we're down in New York City again, but we'll try to drop in whenever we're up there.
Tell him we
Yeah.
look at his dad's bookends every day,
Yeah, we have your father's bookends, both of them.
Preface and Venus,
Speaking of that written profile, Kelly's
Preface
just
and
written another
Venus, and we have
Good.
a trivet he made.
It's high time. I'm glad to hear it.
Is coming out next month, is it, Kelly, in Norfolk Now?
Yeah, the February issue features a new profile on John.
Oh,
That's
wonderful.
wonderful, Kelly. Congratulations. That's
read
great
that.
for everybody.
I've just allowed Margaret O'Malley to talk. Margaret, are you there?
I'm here, and I want to say that, in fact, John did make a beautiful silhouette of my John O'Malley, and I know how you did it because you told me. We had taken a photograph, Nina had taken a photograph of Jack with Chloe on his lap, as if they were communicating with each other.
But
And
they
we
were.
that card out when Jack made it into a card when Jack died. And you took the card and then made the silhouette. And I have it up next to my front door with the White House behind it. And it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm glad to say that I see John Thew around me every single day. There's a dory on the roof of our old garage. There's a canoe with Jack and the two dogs in it that was custom made on our little guest house. And there's a whirligig you made for me in the garden with flowers and Jack reading, and then this beautiful silhouette next to the door. And so I have you around me all day long.
Well, I love being there, Margaret.
Lovely.
And we also are hearing from Rich Dan, former
Oh.
co-director of the library. Or maybe it's Alexa. I'm not sure which.
Both of us.
Both of you. Wonderful.
Yeah, we're both together. And
Well-
all I can say is I'm hearing the voices of all my friends at the library, and those men's breakfasts are always in my head about the good times
Oh,
that
boy.
we had.
You made
That
a
was
lot.
right.
Yeah, thank you, John.
You made a lot of pancakes.
We sure did. A
We
few
sure
eggs,
did.
too.
And scrambled eggs too.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Great
And
ones
then
with
we
melted cheese.
Oh, that sounds yummy. Katie Rocco, I'm just, are you there, Katie?
I'm here. Do you hear me, John?
That's my niece. Yes. Hi, Katie.
Hi, I'm touching base with you from Florida, and I wanted to tell everyone that John is going to be celebrating his 95th birthday in March.
Oh my God.
I don't know anybody as sharp
Oh,
as
you
he
know.
is.
You know, I had to, Katie, because I was 10 in 1937.
Well, you were such an inspiration, but I thought that I should mention about the mailbox business that we obtained from John. It's going to be 34 years ago this coming year, because it was when I was pregnant with Kaylin. And
Well,
I was wondering if you could tell everybody how you came up with the idea of the copper mailboxes.
well, no, I didn't. Henry Taylor came up with the idea. And he said, John, why don't you make a copper mailbox with put one of your designs on it? And I said, well, that's a good idea, Henry. So actually, Henry had a friend that, Heinze, can't think of his first name.
Henze, yeah, Greg.
Heinze
Greg?
made mailboxes, and he said, Hank, why didn't you give me that idea?
Mhm.
Well, I don't know what the answer is to that. But that took so much of my time that I was cutting into my Weathervanes. So I gave the whole business to Katie and Doug, and they've been
And we're
doing
still doing it.
still doing it. Yeah.
Wow.
That's wonderful. I'm just John Harche, who we owe many thanks to for coming up with the idea of this wonderful exhibit of copper weather vanes. And thank you, John. Do you have a few words?
Yeah. Hey, John. It's John and Carol. How you doing?
Hi, John. I see your name.
Hey, there you go. So first question. Right to answer this, I'm just wondering who does your makeup for your television productions. They do a terrific job.
I cut my own hair this morning.
Yeah, you did a job.
It was all like this.
Now that's the John Thew that I know. But what I'd like for you to take just a couple of minutes is Ann did a great display case of your sundial and a couple of your inventions. Could you just tell people about the inventions and those who come to the library, make sure you stop by the display case.
Well, the model, we didn't put in the big model of the sundial. We call it the garden sun clock. It was a foot and wide. We have a smaller version of it, 8 inches wide. It's a band that curves over the top with numbers cut through it. So as the sun goes across the sky, the numbers are projected well, they aren't shadows, they're the bright spot across the background.
Yeah, right.
And I had several patents on that, but they've run out. And I do have a copy of the Weathervane, but it was made in Chicago by a competitor. And in spite of me having a design patent too, they copied the design exactly, except mine had a star on the north edge of it to tell you to point to the North Star. And they put a fleur-de-lis there, I guess to point to a flower. So, but I never contested it because I was so busy making Weathervanes. I said, let them have it. I'm done with that.
That's
unbelievable.
I've sort of erred on the side of people that don't live in Norfolk, but I see a few Norfolk and Canaan names. John Anderson may not live in Norfolk, but John, do you want to say a few words, John?
Yeah, where are you, John?
No, John.
No, John. How about Linda Creedon? Let me just press the allow to talk.
Hello, John. Can you hear us?
There's John.
Yeah, we're watching you from Smith Mountain Lake in Southwest Virginia.
Wow.
And I'm here with my wife, Beth, and her parents, Bill and Ito. We've enjoyed your presentation today.
Hi, John. It's Ito Donaldson.
Oh, hi, Ito. Wow.
Good to see you. You look great.
Great, surrounded by all my friends here. Wow, this is something.
And I just wanted to say that I knew I was retiring because we were gonna, we sold our house and we went RVing. And I said, while I'm still earning a paycheck, I am going to go up to John and buy a couple of Weathervanes for my son-in-laws. And so I bought one of our son-in-laws was a hunter, so he got the deer. And John Anderson lives here right on a lake. He's always been a fisherman and always will be. So he got the fisherman in the boat. And he said, the dory, yes. And he said, this is too good. I'm never going to put it up on the roof. I'm going to keep it in the house so I can enjoy it. And he still has it in the house. It looks just like the day that I bought it.
Don't judge me too hard, John.
Well, yeah, his brother has 9 in the living room.
Right, yeah. Well, of course, now we wish we had bought more, and I loved, so many times I'd go up to visit Eve and we'd go out and, say hi to you while you're busy working in your shop. And it's just, I'm glad that we were here to be able to listen to you and see, hear some of the history that I never knew about your work.
Well, speaking of working on the shop, I built the shop right on the edge, the back of the house, so that I could be a stay-at-home father, sorry, and help bring up the kids. So the kids would get off the bus and come back home from school and come out in the shop and say, "Hi, Dad." And I say, "Can't you see I'm working? Get out of here." Different from my father, where my father dropped everything and just took care of me. Maybe he was out of work. But...
Well, it's lovely to hear from you, Ido. It's been a long time since I've seen you. How about Linda Creedon in Canaan? Linda?
You there, Linda?
Well, she might have stepped aside briefly. And also Catherine and Lucas.
Hi, can you say hi?
Hi, John.
John, these are the Desai's grandchildren, Rohit and Jay's children.
The Desai's grandchildren.
Hello.
And they're holding here, you can't see it, but they're holding a special
our favorite one of our favorite toys from your wife.
Mrs. Thew made the horses, and she made little people that reflect them when they were like 3 years old. She made them.
But I'm touched that this work, it's really it's amazing, and I'm glad to say we have a lot of them.
Yeah, we have a few. We have a few. Grandpa and Nana have a few, and we visited you in that shop that you were mentioning.
Yes, I remember.
You remember, and we brought the kids there, and you showed them. You had time for them, so that was very nice. Thank you. Well, we love seeing you, and we just wanted to tell you we're here as your fans.
Well, you make me very happy to mention Eve's dolls and the joy of them, because I'm still getting joy from them. I have them in baskets around the house, and I don't want to part with them. And my daughter says, "Absolutely, Dad, don't get rid of any of those."
Well, you two are a great inspiration, and we love seeing you at the farmers market. So we're going to see. Oh, we do have one really kind of a request of the library. Maybe you can convince them. We're wondering if they can keep the show up until Saturday, so that we can see it next week. But I don't know. That's a kind of begging question for the library.
I wish we could. We do. Unfortunately, we have another show that's opening on Sunday. So we have to, unfortunately, dismantle this and install it for the next show.
Was there more in the show than the slides?
No. We photographed each one. So yeah, you got a complete view of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. This is wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for tuning in. And let me see. I think Jenny Eckert has her hand raised. Jenny, are you still there? Or Bill?
Yes, actually, it's Bill.
Oh, hi,
but
Bill.
It always says Virginia on our Zoom.
Yes.
But we are together, and we're here, and say hello to John.
Can I still hear?
There was, John, can you hear me okay?
I hear you, Bill.
Okay, John. So there were some other things in the display case. There was the solar cigarette lighter, which I think is fascinating. I don't imagine how long that took to actually light the cigarette, but maybe it was quick, I don't know. But the other things were these like trivets and flat pieces that you did. And you gave us one of the Bless Our House pieces a while back. And we brought that to the library after we went to see your exhibit, thinking that maybe that should be in the case, because we remember the story about how you said that piece allowed you and Eve to get married. I'd love to hear that story again.
That's right. That's what made enough money for the. My father carved out a little wooden figure of letters saying, "Bless this house, O Lord, we pray, make it safe by night and day," which is really a song. In fact, we heard from the owners of the copyright, but fended them off. A lawyer friend of my father wrote him a letter that just cooled him off. But solar cigarette lighter did light instantly. You put a cigarette in it, point it in the sun, and like that, it was lit.
Wow.
Because the surface of the sun is something like 20,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and that little dish concentrates it down to like a magnifying glass does, to a spot just a few thousandths of an inch wide. So it's intense heat right on the end of the cigarette, and it takes no time at all. In fact, Eve and I drove to Florida in 1958 without enough money to get home, but a trunk full of cigarette lighters. So all I had to do was stand on the street with people walking by and light a cigarette, and people were running over and say, "Where'd you get that?" And I said, "Oh, right here." They'd pass the money to me and I'd pass them out. So then we sold them to stores, and we came home with a box full of money. So it's a nice adventure to go off without enough money to come home with.
The other interesting gadget in our case is the thing that you shoot quarters into a toll booth with.
Oh, the turnpike toll gun.
Your toll gun.
There's a magazine with a spring load and a little lever you pull back, and when you pull the trigger, it shoots the quarter out. And that made quite a hit. There was a friend that was living in London at the time and sent us a clipping from the newspaper showing a picture of it, and it is a news story. And there was a cartoon in the New Yorker magazine where the dumb blonde, I guess, is pointing it at the toll keeper and says, "No, lady, don't use a pistol here."
Oh boy, it's wonderful.
And then, as far as the solar cigarette lighter, I think it was the Jack Parr program that was one of those late night shows. They panned it, they put it under a light bulb with a cigarette in it, and about every 5 minutes they'd go back and say, "No, it hasn't lit yet." Well, of course it wouldn't. It was just a light bulb. But I was incensed. But on the other hand, any publicity is better than none. So.
And John, you have to describe the dice that are in the case.
Oh yes, dice.
Well, I made round dice, and if you took one apart, you'd find that there were 6 sections inside where a little tiny, not tiny, but a small steel ball, like a ball bearing, would roll into one of the 6 to turn up any number. So that round dice can't look like they just keep rolling, but they stop at a chance number. So I made the original model for that, and I got paid big money for $75. Of course, that was when was it? Late 50s, I guess. And $75 did mean a little bit, but not much today.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, any other questions? I was gonna say.
I don't think so. I think unless I've missed any, I think that we've allowed everyone to speak who care to raise their hand, and we have a list of participants that we can send you, John, so you know who was here, some 75 people. And I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. We are recording our program, and that recording we sent to you. as a registered participant. We will also be posting it on our YouTube channel. So we're just thrilled that John was able to do this today, that we didn't get snowed out here in the icebox of Connecticut. And thank you, everybody, but mostly thank you so much, John, for sharing your wonderful stories and your beautiful.
Thank you, John. We love you.
Whoa, thanks.
Thank
I
you,
love all
thank
you.
you,
Thank you, John.
thank you.
Many,
And
many thanks from many, many people here.
And thanks to Ann.
From
and
all
Ann
over
Martin.
the country.
And thanks to John Hershey too for pulling all this together in the first place.
Absolutely. Many thanks. Everyone have a wonderful evening, and we'll enjoy seeing the video when it's ready in a day or two. Thank you, John.
And by the way, thanks for Kelly too.
Thank you so
You're
much,
welcome.
Kelly, for all of your assistance. Bye, everybody.